ערב טוב לכולם. אני שמחה מאוד לראות שכל כך הרבה אנשים הצטרפו אלינו לוובינר הראשון שלנו בנושא הפצה בעולם משתנה. אני פנינה, המנכ"לית של קופרו. זו שנה מאוד מאוד מאתגרת לכל מי שעוסק בעשייה הקולנועית, ואנחנו בקופרו, שבדרך כלל רגילים להביא לארץ את טובי המוחות ואנשי המקצוע, מנסים לפרמט את הפעילות שלנו ולהביא אליכם היוצרים את הקהל הבינלאומי והידע המקצועי, גם בתקופה הזאת של הסגר. אז אני מאוד מקווה שכולם בטוב שם בבית ושומרים על המורל וממשיכים לעבוד וליצור. כיוזמה של אתר דוקו שוק בשיתוף מפעל הפיס, אנחנו שמחים להביא אליכם סדרה של 4 מפגשים, שבהם ניגע בתחומים שונים בעולמות ההפצה והמכירה של סרטים דוקומנטריים. למי שלא מכיר, הדוקו שוק זוהי פלטפורמת אונליין מבית קופרו, המיועדת לאנשי התעשייה בה מוצגים הסרטים הדוקומנטריים מהשנים האחרונות, לפני קהל של מקבלי החלטות. מה זה אומר בעצם? נכון להיום רשומים באתר מאות מנהלי תוכן של רשתות שידור, פרוגרמרים, פסטיבלים גדולים, בינוניים וקטנים, מפיצים ועוד רבים אחרים. רק בחמישי האחרון התקיימה פגישה של כ-60 נציגים של מרכזים יהודיים בצפון אמריקה, שהתוודעו לפלטפורמה ולסרטים שלכם בעצם, ומחפשים תוכן לקהל שלהם. כרגע יש לנו בפלטפורמה כ-100 סרטים גמורים, ועוד עשרות פרויקטים ופיתוח שהשתתפו בשווקים האחרונים של קופרו. בחודשים האחרונים עלו לשירות כל הסרטים החדשים שהוצגו בדוק אביב ובפסטיבל חיפה, ואנחנו ממשיכים לעדכן את הקטלוג כל הזמן, ולהיות בעצם הפנים של הדוקו הישראלי כלפי חוץ. מבחינתכם, היוצרות והיוצרים, דוקו שוק הוא המקום להיות בו, כדי לחשוף את הסרטים שלכם לכל אותם אנשי מקצוע, ואנחנו בקופרו עובדים באופן רציף על שיווק של הפלטפורמה והסרטים לפסטיבלים. אז אם יש לכם סרט מהשנתיים האחרונות ואתם מעוניינים להעלות אותו לדוקו שוק ועוד לא עשיתם את זה, אתם מוזמנים לפנות אלינו. לאור המצב, בתקופת הקורונה ועד סוף השנה אנחנו מאפשרים ליוצרים להעלות את הסרטים ללא עלות. העלות בדרך כלל השירות היא סמלית ושנתית ומשמשת בעיקר לכיסוי הוצאות. אז נחזור לסדרת ההרצאות שלנו. כל שבועיים מהיום אנחנו מתכננים לקיים הרצאות שונות. בפעם הבאה נקיים מפגש על נושא טריילרים למכירה, שיווק והפצה עם מפיקת הסרט תזמורת ממוחזרת, שהטריילר שלו עשה לא פחות מ3 מיליון צפיות ביוטיוב. ב9 לנובמבר נקיים הרצאה מעולה עם נציגת חברת אלפא פנדה על שיווק דיגיטלי והתפקיד של הרשתות החברתיות בהפצה. ובהרצאה האחרונה נפרוס את כל עולם פלטפורמות ה-VOD הרבות והאפשרויות למכירה של סרטים, גם לסטרימרים קטנים ברחבי העולם. אז אתם יכולים למצוא את כל המידע באתר של קופרו, בפייסבוק, וגם נשלח אחר כך בצ'אט את הלינקים כדי להירשם קדימה לכל ההרצאות. אז היום אנחנו מארחים את סטפני פוקס, מחברת Outlook Film Sales מווינה, שעובדים לא מעט עם יוצרים ישראלים וחברים טובים של קופרו, ומייצגים סרטים משלב ההפקה עד שלב ההפצה. ענת נטל, מנהלת התוכן של קופרו, תנחה את המפגש. So I would like to welcome Stephanie Fuchs from Outlook Films. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge with Israeli filmmakers. I will pass the mic to you and Anat. So enjoy, and תודה רבה לכולם וערב טוב.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe we start with the most obvious question. Why actually filmmakers need to have a sales agent? What is it that you do?
Well, I mean, it depends, as in all cases, on what you want with the film, what kind of film you have, and if it makes probably it's sense for you to have a sales agent too. Just to give a little overview, we're like 7 people here working full time to work on like 15 to 20 films a year. So it is a lot of work. And of course, a lot of things you can do as a filmmaker by yourself. You can do festival submissions, you can contact broadcasters, you can talk to distributors. But it's a big field, and it's a big world where you can also run into many difficulties when it comes to strategy. So of course, on the one hand, we have like over 10 years, I think we're at year 14 or 15 now, experience in knowing the whole film industry. So we know who are the players, who is buying what. We have 2 people working with broadcasters that know exactly which broadcasters look for which kind of films, what slots they are. For me, I work with film festivals, so I do know the programmers, I know the profiles, I know which festivals need which premiere status. So it's quite complex, and the same with VOD players and with distributors. So not only it's like the experience of what could fit for your film, but also who to talk to. There are, of course, open calls, and festivals, for example, do take films that just get submitted. But it's also a lot of work, as you probably all know if you had a film, to look out for submission deadlines, to submit films. Also, it's quite expensive to pay for submission fees. And that's for us, we can be more strategic on where it makes sense to submit. Also,
not do it automatically.
Exactly. So I know kind of what kind of film is it? What do I plan with it? Who do I talk to first? And also I usually, for most of the film festivals, we don't have to pay that much submission fee. A lot of times we have agreements. We can just, if it's not COVID times right now, we're basically constantly traveling to all the markets. So we do meet people in person, and it's something different sending an email, hey, this is my film, then sitting down with a person, talking, figuring out what they're looking for, what maybe if they have some special topics they're looking for this year, what changes are there with festivals and also with programmers. So this personal connection is something that is very hard to gain if you also want to have time to make the film. That's also it. Like if you make a film and then you have like 2 years, it can just concentrate on sales. You might be able to also do a lot, but it's our full-time job. So usually,
and you know the people.
We know the people. We know who to talk to. So that's one part, and also of course the negotiating part, because we worked with people before. We know what we can ask for. We can be a bit tougher with negotiating fees, with the negotiating restrictions. And also usually everything that can happened once for us. Like you run into things, you are more careful with contracting, for example. It can be very confusing and a lot if you get a contract from a broadcaster, for example, and you have in one line, they say that they will, for example, show the film online on VOD worldwide for a week. That's something that just can completely destroy your chances for anything else. So you have to be very careful also with trying to give away. And then on the practical part, I know it's usually people forget, but it's still having the whole actual delivery of the materials, discussing screening formats, delivery deadlines, coordinating DCPs, going from one place to the other.
All the technical side.
All the technical side of that. We do this, of course, with the filmmakers, but we kind of know what will people ask for, what do we need, what is something that we can negotiate with people. And we have one person pretty much taking care of that whole coordination. And it gets more complex, like formats are changing.
All the time.
All the time. So some points of why it would make sense in my mind to work with us or with any of our other colleagues.
And then who make the first move? I mean, I know you scout all over the international markets, but you also represent filmmakers that are coming to you in a development stage. So how does it work? And when should I contact you? Which stage you prefer to be involved? Are there any rules?
There are rules, but I feel like we're in an industry where for every rule there's exceptions. There is not like one strict rule. So the safest place for us to get involved with a film is at rough cut stage, because we know what the film will look like. So that's for us, it's the safest bet. But then again, we're in touch with films, or also sometimes officially attached to films that are in production stage. It all depends a bit one on the topic or just on the film itself. If we're super hooked by a pitch, we feel like, okay, we trust in the team that the film they will make will have a certain quality and we know we can work with it. It's also, there's also a little bit of a competition between the sales agents, of course. Sometimes you don't want to wait until the film is finished because maybe somebody else is already on board and you really want to have it. So a lot of times in those cases, we're in involved early on is if we know somebody of the team before, we have worked with a production company, or it's a bit of a safer bet sometimes. But we also had films where we just felt, okay, it's a project we just really love, we want to work with it, let's get involved, let's get attached. And then on the other side of the spectrum, even though we really, really try to avoid taking on films that already have a premiere set, it sometimes also happens. We feel, okay, the film already played like maybe at a handful of festivals. It's not ideal, and it almost never happens. Like, we usually want to be involved before the world premiere, so we can discuss the strategy, we can set up everything, but there's also exceptions to that. So I would say there is no wrong way to contact us. I would think if you're already comfortable with the project you're at, and then either catch sales agents at the market. If you're pitching firms, we do meet producers there all the time, but also just dropping us an email saying what the project is about, like a short synopsis, short treatment, telling us which partners are involved, where you're at the production stage. And even if we might not be able to officially commit, we already know about you. We can follow the project, we can be in touch. So that's also something I think, like, you need to be comfortable with the stage you're at with the film.
Not too
if you
early.
feel like not too early, because of course we can watch multiple cuts of the same film, but that's if you're already quite interested. But if you're too early,
you won't waste your time.
We might just decline because we say it's nothing for us. So I think you also have to be a bit strategic of how you present it. I mean, it's for us. So if we take on a film, we discuss with you on how to write a synopsis, and we might change it a bit so we know how to sell it. But also, you basically sell an idea to us. So I would think also of how to pitch it is quite important. If you're not ready with the cut, thinking before, maybe also with some partners and brainstorm within the team, what are points that make the film internationally relevant, what makes it super special, is there some kind of special access that only you have, is the topic super urgent, something like that, something that tells us why we need to work with you. So, but there is no like timeline on that's the ideal moment.
And since the art changing, this is time of change, as we call it, maybe we start with the traditional way of distributing a documentary film. I mean, what was your best plan in ordinary days before COVID-19?
So again, you have like your traditional standard way of releasing a film, your different stages, but also before COVID, that was like an idea, and then you have exceptions and exceptions and exceptions. So I think we're in a
you have
business.
A plan A,
exactly,
the ultimate plan, and then
you also see what happens. Like, first you always start with thinking about your world premiere, starting with a strong festival premiere, thinking where you ideally on an A festival where it could work, talking to those people first and trying to secure a good premiere for you.
And at this point, what do you call a good international premiere?
Also,
what do you consider?
You have like I would say the big five kind of, starting with in January, Sundance, Berlin, Cannes, Venice, Toronto. Like, those are A festivals where we would all be happy to premiere a film at. But then it really, like, there is like this traditional, there is an official description of what an A festival is. There is a bigger number of festivals that work with the term. But also, actually, before you even think for your premiere, you think what you want to do with the film and what your plan is. If it's a film where I think it will work so great with broadcasters, I might want to premiere at a festival where I know that a lot of the broadcasters are at and will watch it. And for some films, it's more crucial to be at really one of the big festivals to give it the quality stamp. And for some films, it's great, but we know it will have a life also at another premiere or one of the documentary A festivals. So you try to figure out what your wish is, and then you make plan B, C, D, E until you find like a perfect fit of the festival that also wants to work with it. And traditionally, you then, once you have the premiere, you work on the local premieres and the national premieres, and then at the same time talk to distributors for potential theatrical releases, if it's a film that has potential for theatrical. Exactly. But also like before COVID, during all this time, usually when you talk, you have like all those big players like Netflix, HBO, for example, to take world rights. Those are people you basically talk to the same time when you talk to the A festivals. You sometimes are in touch with them or have a deal before it even comes to the festival circuit, because they take the whole world. So you cannot have any distributors on board if they want to film, if you want to work with them. So it's already before COVID, everything is a bit overlapping, because you cannot be that strict anymore. Things move really fast. As I said before, you had like festivals, then you have theatrical, then you go to broadcasters, and then the film goes on VOD, and you work with educational screenings, community screenings, and so on. But this all is overlapping with ASO platforms coming before, taking films, sometimes showing it right after the premiere. Also, with broadcasters, it depends what offers you have. If I have a great offer from a broadcaster that takes some territories and pays good money, but has to broadcast at a certain time because it's a very timely topic and they need to show it at a certain point, a date, we might leave out in that whole territory the theatrical road and any more festivals and go directly with broadcast. Otherwise, we would lose the deal if that's the best way for the film. So already before COVID, things are overlapping and happening at the same time a lot of times, because they are kind of interconnected in a way.
And then can you just explain a bit more about what is the deal with the international premiere? I mean, you have one European, international, US premiere, and how does it work?
So the world premiere, it's the first showing of your film. It's the first time the film shows at a festival, or also the cinema. If you show your film at an event somewhere, even if it's not an official festival, that's your world premiere. Once you show it for an open public, that's your world premiere. And if the world premiere happens to be in the main country of production, for example, if you have an Israeli film, if you have the world premiere at one of the Israeli festivals, then you still have the international premiere open, which means that's the first time the film shows outside of its its own country. That is usually most of the A festivals are okay with an international premiere. This is also a bit changing now with COVID, because a lot of the festivals do have a hybrid form. They go online, even though if it's only in your country. A festivals now are more strict with having really world premieres and not so happy with international premieres anymore. So you have to be a bit more careful now, because sometimes you have like options of combining A festivals. Like it doesn't happen often, but it can happen that you have a US film,
a local premiere, and then the international.
Exactly, but there are films where you first, for example, go to Sundance and then you go to Berlin afterwards. But it doesn't happen super often.
And of course, not the other way around. You can do Berlin and then Sundance.
No, because it's afterwards and you wouldn't wait a year. So you also need to see which festivals are quite timely. But for example, it worked that we had Fathers and Sons, for example, had the world premiere at IDFA, and then it had just the US premiere at Sundance. This was really something that doesn't happen that often. And then once you have that, you can go, like the next step would be having your continental premieres, like European premiere. If the international premiere is not in Europe and the national premiere was not in Europe, then you have the European premiere available. You have a Latin American premiere, you have an Asian premiere. Those are things with it depends on the festival. You can play with a bit, and you can give the higher status you give a festival, the more likely you will get a more permanent slot, the more likely you get into competition. So it's like a little bargain thing for you. It's like some extra thing you can give with the films, an extra value.
And this is something a sales agent knows best. I mean,
exactly. It also depends which we have festivals where we know, okay, if it's not at least the European premiere, it won't go into the main competition. But then also we know from experience, okay, but this festival's made an exception 3 years ago with this film, so we might try to set up the same thing. So there are always sometimes exceptions possible, it's just not that often. And once you have that, then you have like your national premieres, which is the first time the film shows in a specific country. And in big countries like Canada, the US, they also Australia, they work a lot with regional premieres too. Mm-hmm. So they might not need to be the first in the whole country, but the first within your region or in the area. For example, Doc NYC, officially they need the premiere in New York and the surrounding cities. So that's something you can also look up. But also sometimes they have like official rules, like we only need a North American premiere, but in reality, they rarely take anything below international premiere. So it's something even if it says in regulations, it has to be.
You need to know what it means. Okay. So, and now we are in COVID times, and everything pretty much changed since most of the premiere, most of the festival are online.
So yeah, what I said, one thing that really changed is that the world premiere became even more important, that international premieres are harder to place.
Mm-hmm. But you would imagine because of the geo-blocking, it would be easier?
It's still, they still geo-block, like and it works really well. But still, once something is on the internet, there is a chance of it easily being pirated, to hack it, no matter how secure the system is. And that's just the reality. And even though it might not happen that often, they just want to be safe. And also with being online, you have much more. It depends if like maybe the trade or press is already covering for a national premiere, then it's harder to get it for the international premiere. So that's also a reason why it's usually world premieres are more and more the thing you need to have for an A festival. So it's harder to negotiate that. And then, as you said, like now I feel like the system that works for most festivals is like a hybrid version where you have a physical screening and then you have an online part of it. And for us, like,
do you have it in Europe? It's really hybrid, and people go.
Mm-hmm. It actually
hard for us to imagine.
I mean, right now, what happens for me most is that I talk to festivals and they plan a hybrid version with the possibility, if there is a lockdown, to go completely online, and we discuss both options beforehand. And then we have festivals that happen only physical. They said, okay, we want to be a physical festival, which usually means we take less films because we need to show each film more often, more times, because we cannot have the cinemas full. So it's much more competitive too. That's also what happens with COVID. You feel it's more, the programs get slimmer. Festivals try to have a smaller competition because they need to show the films more often. So it gets a bit harder to get the films with some festivals.
And because this is the way it works these days, most of the filmmakers can travel with their films. So is it something that you can negotiate about the fees?
That's also what I do. Like usually, I mean, you can always negotiate fees, and I try to ask for fees with every festival I work with. And in case they invite filmmakers and they cover transportation, I can lower the fees or waive it. Mm-hmm. Now, it's also something, I have like multiple conversations going on with festivals. Now I don't have like one deal and that's the deal. I'm like, in case the filmmaker can't travel due to regulations, that's the fee. In case he cannot, then I will ask for a higher fee. Because also like, it's not only money. When you travel to a festival and it's a physical event, you can gain more out of it. You can network, you meet other people, you meet the audience. it's a different
Yeah,
experience.
this is
to do as a
something
filmmaker than
filmmakers
having it
said they
online.
really miss the contact, the physical
Yeah.
contact with the audience.
And it's different. I
Sitting.
mean, I completely understand it. It's different if you premiere your film, you sit in front of your computer and like, oh, my world premiere is happening right now. It's not the same as
in
being
my
there.
pajama.
Exactly. It's not the same as being there. And that's also something that festivals know. And a lot of them, like, mostly they're really fair with the conditions. If it's online, a lot of the festivals, for example, offer a share of the screening fee.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, you get a share, the more people watch the film, the more income you get. So if you cannot get the physical experience, I would urge to try to get at least a higher fee out of you. I mean, still the big festivals, it's still if you're showing online at one of the big festivals, it's still great for the film. I mean, it's still, you have that quality stamp on it, but it's not the same. And also for us from a sales point of view, like we do work with online festivals and we do want to support them, but it's much harder to also get the attention within the industry. Like word of mouth and being in the cinema is something it's hard to copy online. If you go out of the movie and you talk to the person next to you and people tell, or you're at a drink in the evening and somebody tells you, oh, have you seen this great film yesterday?
You must
and
go
you're in a buyer's
see.
lounge and like one distributor talks to the other, or you have to see that film. That happens when you meet people. You're not gonna watch a film online and then write an email to all your industry friends, oh, you should see the film. And that's something that's for us also really missing and really lacking.
So sometimes you recommend to filmmakers to postpone the release for next year, or something?
I think it also depends on your project, of course. It's a gamble. We had some films where we held back, and we also released a lot of films online because we know that a lot of the big films, they are being held back. So once everything opens again, I mean, the competition will be that much harder. And we don't know yet. We have no idea how many films are being held back, what is coming once everything is open again. And we also don't know when this is going to happen. Even though one festival could be happening physical, like Venice, we don't know who can travel. We don't know how it looks in other countries. Is the industry really there? Or is it more for the local audience? So it's very hard to predict how it looks like in half a year, how it looks like in a year. And then also if it's a film that it's so timeless and has the same relevance in a year or two, and you can afford, you don't have any strings attached, you don't need to broadcast at a certain time. Maybe you actually can use the time to edit a bit more or something. Why not hold it back? Why not wait and see what happens? But sometimes you are involved with people. You have a financier on board, you have a distributor on board already in the financing process that needs to have a special release date, or you have a film that works so well with an upcoming anniversary or something where you know now is the time
people
I could sell
will talk
it.
about it. Yeah.
Exactly. And in 2 years it might feel outdated in 2 years. So that's a lot of things to think about. So there is no clear hold back every film or go with an online release. I think right now, with at least some screenings happening, it's getting a bit easier to at least have some of the experience, but still having people, we don't know if people will actually travel that much like they used to. So it's also for us a bit of a waiting game and seeing what happens.
And then from your experience, the broadcasters are less restricted. I mean, they can make their window wider or change it a bit, or there's also need from their side to make the program.
I mean, they have to have a program. It depends what your contract says. It also depends for them if it's a film they can easily program later on, or if they have a set date already, and when the date is, and if they can fill it with something else. So it's really, that's a case-by-case thing. So if you feel you're ready now and you might think about holding back your film, really talk to all of your partners if they would be okay with it, or if you run into problems doing it. Because you don't want to have, you held it back for later premiere and all of a sudden you have a broadcast date coming up and you have basically like a 2-month window to quickly release your film.
Yeah, and make it
Then you have to rush it. And once, as I said before, once your film is out there, and that also means a broadcast. Once your film is broadcast, that's the release date of the film. And if you wait a year, that's still the date that's on your film.
Yeah.
So you cannot like pretend, okay, it only was shown once. Let's pretend it never happens. Once it's out there, it's out there. And then it still might work for festivals, but then you have regulations with, okay, we take films not older than this and this date, and you just limit your chances. But as I said, it's all, with nothing, there's no strict rule to things. It's a case-by-case situation, and depending on your setup and on the film you have.
And another question, how do festivals react when at the end I decide not to screen my film? I know it happens sometimes. And, is it that common, or how does it work?
I mean, it's never nice if you have to decline an invitation. It's not nice for the festivals because they took the time to watch it and to choose, and it's a long process. It's also not nice for us to have to decline. But also that's a bit the name of the game here. I mean, I had this discussion with some festivals before when they were like really like not happy about it. The other option would be to not submit if I'm not 100% sure it is available. But that's also not, like, they also don't want to miss out if there is an option, you know? And sometimes when I submit a film, it's, I don't know, 5-6 months before the festival even. I don't know what's happening by then. Yeah. I don't know if I already have my world premiere. I don't know if maybe I have it depends also on what section you're in. If I decide to go with the festival in, maybe it's a bit bigger, but it's a non-competitive slot, or if a festival offers me a competition slot, it depends what makes sense for the film. And it's also not only about, oh, I decline your festival because I want another one instead. Sometimes it's also not my choice. We had a case, for example, with a distributor where we confirmed the premiere. Then we got a distributor on board and he said, well, I want to have my cinema release after the premiere at another festival. So if you don't pull it back, my offer is not valid anymore, because they planned their release around another festival premiere. So of course, that's that's a situation you don't want to be in. That's why I said, like, if you rather be a bit more hesitant with accepting, but be sure if you accept that it's fine that you accept. But of course, it's not, they're not happy. And if it's always like passion, of course they fight for the films. They want their lovely films, so they will fight for it. And that's a good sign. But it's something that in the end, festivals also have to understand, in my opinion. It's the same thing, like also if I submit a film, they're not obliged to take it. And if I submit, I'm not obliged to
This is the game.
This is the game. The only thing you have to be careful is there are sometimes festivals that there are new festivals every year, and I'm in touch with festivals I never know. So I read the regulations. Sometimes if it's in the regulations, like once I submit the film, I officially confirm the participation if selected. That's something you need to be alert about. That doesn't happen often. And with most of the festivals that are around and that work professionally, that's not an issue. But there are some that have it somewhere in the regulations, and then you might be in a contractual issue. But just quickly, Film Freeway, for example, is a good site. If it's a new festival and they have the option to submit via Film Freeway, they have those rules always so easily cleared out that it's quite easy to quickly check and go through them and see if everything sounds weird. Or if it says, in case of the festival selection, we will stream the film worldwide at the same time. It's like alert. Or we have the right to do community screenings for free for a year. Sometimes you can negotiate those things, but then I usually write an email. I would love to submit, but can you confirm that those terms don't apply?
I think we can open, the people, if you have questions for us, you can write them in the chat, and then
and you will translate if I can do it.
No, we in Israel, we know how to write in English.
Yeah, no, but I see.
No, you can see here. Okay, so we have one. If you're new and you don't have any experience, what are the examples you can give for a wish and for a plan?
In terms of festivals, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the first thing before even making a plan is either ask this yourself or discuss it with your sales agent. What is your main goal with the film? What do you mainly want to make money back? Do you mainly want, if it's your first film, is your main goal to make a name for yourself and travel and really build your profile? Is your main goal to have the film as widely watched as possible because you want to make an impact? Those are things that I would ask myself first, and then you can start thinking about your wish premiere.
And then you build your strategy accordingly.
You build around it. Exactly. Because if I'm usually first-time filmmakers, in most of the cases, I want to have my name out there. I want to maybe get some awards. I want to be recognized. I want to build a profile. Then I would really try to go for the 5 A festivals I mentioned before and try to talk to them first. But then at the same time, also, you can look up a list online actually of what are A festivals and also what are the best doc festivals and try to submit there. It so depends on the film. It's so hard to what you can also do sometimes as a good tip is, if you have some films that you really love and you feel like your film is in the same wheelhouse, look where they played. Look up their websites, where they premiered, where they won awards. It's also a good indication of what you can do. We actually had somebody from a film team that never actually one of the protagonists of a film that just started researching 10, 15 films that did well and did his own festival strategy. And once we came on board, we discussed, and it was very spot on. I was very impressed.
Autodidact.
It did, yeah. So that's also something that often helps if you
prepare.
If you find yourself a bit lost in the whole circuit. So yeah, of course, Sundance, very competitive. They have 12 films in the competition, super competitive, but I would give it a try if you feel like the film fits there. The same with, as I said, Berlin, Toronto, Venice, Cannes. But then again, of festivals like CBH Docs, ITFA, documentary festivals like that, also great for you to start. But then it would be, of course, good to try to get into a competition slot. If you're also new, there is a list of festivals that actually aim and specialize on first-time filmmakers. So every festival, everybody wants to discover the next new talent. That's also for you as a filmmaker, that's something great to know. For example, at ITFA, they have a separate competition only for first-time filmmakers. You have festivals that only have competitions for first, second-time filmmakers. So that's something I would also really aim for. And then, yeah, it's hard to make one plan for a film only because it's new.
Yeah, but I think what is more important for you as a filmmaker at this stage, and then build the strategy.
Yeah,
actually accordingly. We have another question. If my film has already been screened in Israel television, but I decided to change it a bit and create an international version, is it possible to present it as a world premiere?
It's a bit tricky. It can sometimes work. It depends how different the film is. If it's really, I don't know, if the version that was broadcasted is a 45-minute version and now your feature is 80 or 90 minutes, it's a completely different film. It might work. I would try to still be honest about it. Submit it, tell them there has been a version broadcasted. it can work. We had, for example, Island of the Hungry Ghosts a couple of years back, where there was like a 20-minute version on BBC that was from the same material, and then I made a feature out of it, and it was no problem. So it just has to be different enough, then it can still work. But like with everything,
better tell it in advance and let them
just
decide.
be honest and direct about it, because you don't want to have festivals figure it out later, and then they might be mad or have a bad reputation. So I'd rather be straightforward and tell them, I mean, if it's extremely different, it's just the same material, and you come from a 15-minute, 20-minute short to a feature version, and it even has a different name, then I don't see any issue with it, because then it's a completely different film.
Mm-hmm. Let me see the next one. What do you think about being presented with the film on different online platforms simultaneously? Can you sell more than one online platform at the same time?
Yeah, actually we work a lot with aggregators, that it's basically like the middleman where they put films on different platforms like iTunes, like Amazon. You have those national platforms. It depends which platform you're talking to. You have some that are like exclusive. If you're like on Netflix, for example, or HBO or something, that they will tell you, like if you have a contract with them, they will tell you if you're allowed to have it on other platforms. If it's non-exclusive, sure, why not? You have more options to reach people. You don't care from what side the revenue comes in. Also, having it on Vimeo on demand yourself can also help, because when you get it directly, if you have, for example, I don't know, a mailing list of people that have been interested, send out this directly, you get like more direct revenue. But there is I don't see any issues. Once you're already decided that my film is ready to be online, this widely, because then it might be tricky with broadcast, with distribution, those things. Some small festival screenings might still work. But at this point, when our films go online, we also distribute them on several platforms.
Okay. The next one, can you talk about theatrical release for documentaries? How common is it in Europe or US to find screens for a doc? And what is the profile for films theatrically usually look for?
So it's tricky. Theatrical still works. We do still sell to theatrical distributors, do still have films in the cinemas, North America, also in Europe. It's either like really cinematic films that work. It's sometimes like big names work if you have topics that draws people in. It's like I said, it has to be like a really cinema film out from the pace of it. So it does not really work if you have a film that you know has like this fast TV pace that usually does not work so well on theatrical screens. It's a bit hard to know. Like there is not one profile like we're looking for this topic or this kind of filmmaking. It has to feel big enough. I think that's the main thing. It has to feel like something that the distributor can work with and you draw people in. But also festivals can help you with it. We have films where it was not so clear that it would work theatrically, but then they did so well on the festival circuit and got a lot of awards and a lot of press. And that made a name for it. And then distributors took a chance on it. And sometimes it's also very topical with works in the cinemas. For example, now we have a film called Caught in the Net. It's a Czech film about basically online child abuse and pedophiles on the internet, which is super relevant. And they had the theatrical release in Czech Republic before the lockdown. And I think there were like almost 500,000 admissions in Czech Republic alone. And this just also helps with other distributors to tell them, look, it really works in the cinema. It's such relevant, even now, even more than ever, such a relevant film. And with this, we really try to go to the cinemas with it. So also having a good national theatrical release can really help and giving you arguments of, look,
People go
really
to cinema.
want to go. Exactly.
My film is shot in 2 countries that don't have a co-production treaty. Russia and Israel, for that account. Any other way I can take advantage of the situation?
So what is the, I don't understand what your main production country is then? If it's the same, it's a Russian, Israeli
It's an Israeli-Russian co-production, but I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm not sure either. I don't want to answer something I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe we can ask for
details.
this person to clarify.
Yeah.
So we go to the next one in the meantime. What do you think is the best way to organize all your films data in order to submit film efficiently?
What I do, I mean, of course, you have things like Sinando Film Freeway where festivals have worked with them, so it's easy. You enter the film once and everything is there. But in a lot of times you need to fill out specific forms. So what I, for example, do is I have a folder, it can be a Dropbox folder where you have all the material set. You have like the main stills, the poster, director's info, the picture of the director, a sheet with the credits, with the main information, just all set there. So you can send this to festivals. And then just within the email have set up your little pitch email with a great synopsis. If you have quotes, what festivals did it show at already, which awards you already won. And this is something I usually send via email if they accept submission via mail. And if not, it's also good to have this sheet handy. Like it's called our film info sheet. We send this out to our producers when we start working with them, and to fill it out, like those questions that you always need. There. Production, countries of production, the year, the title, the length, which formats you have, what are the contexts, just subtitles, everything that they will ask for, what's the main credits. So you have your infos per hand and you can just copy paste them easily, or send it as a sheet if they need it.
How are you working with production that will give you only part of the world? As an example, if your production would prefer to have a distribution sale agent at the US and another one at Europe and the rest of the world, it happens.
It happens. It's not, I mean, it depends. It's not ideal. We do work with films where we work with a US partner and they have a US, like a North American distributor, and we take the rest of the world. That does happen. It depends, to be honest, on what still is available. If you already sold so many territories, like you have, for example, Arte on board for German speaking, you have Al Jazeera on board, you have, I don't know, a handful of broadcasters within Europe and the rest of the world, plus the North American distributor. We need to think what is still available for us that we can potentially sell enough so it works also for us. Like, because we do spend the same time and we do have the same work with every film. Like, you have to have preparation, you do everything. So you need to think if it makes still sense. But it does happen. Like, we do work also with US partners, and when it's split. I wouldn't split it into more. Like, I don't think we ever had a film where we had like multiple other sales attached, where we had like US sales and we only took Europe or something else. That usually does not, like, then it's just not enough for us to be feasible to work with it, because we have to be so limited anyways with the films we take. But what of course happens a lot of times is that the production company keeps their own territory, which is usually totally fine. For example, you would keep the Israeli rights and you work there with the distributor, and because you know people there anyways. It's just, then we would just discuss if there is any overlapping. But this is something that happens a lot of times.
What do you think about being present with the film on different online platforms simultaneously? We talked about this, sorry. You mentioned earlier that your company knows which films to send to which festivals? Can you tell which documentary type is right for which of the major festivals?
Also, they change. With the A festivals, it's a bit more tricky. I would say beautiful cinematic films, strong main characters works with A festivals quite good. If it's a very topical film, I would rather go to documentary festivals as a premiere a lot of times. Then you have like, if it's like very, for example, more experimental films, I would, for example, I don't know, work with Locarno, Vision de Riel. Also, let's take Berlin, for example. We know the Berlinale Panorama, they have a lot of films with an LGBTQ angle. So we know if it goes into that direction, that it might make sense to work with them. Venice, a lot of times have films where it's film about film, for example. If you have a film about a filmmaker or about filmmaking, we know that Venice tends to take those films more recently, and they don't take a lot of documentaries anyways. So also it's a bit from experience and what kind of sections you have there. With Berlinale, you have the generation section where if you have a film with a younger character or it works also for a younger audience, makes really sense to go there. I don't know, if you have a big name attached that is really like, I don't know, a singer or a musician, somebody that people know, it makes sense to go with festivals that are very like audience focused, because they know those will draw the audience in.
And a lot of PR.
And a lot of PR. And maybe having somebody to attend the red carpet that's attached to your film also makes sense. If you have a director that's super popular, your main character is a celebrity that people want to have, might higher your chances of getting into those kind of festivals. So yeah, also with it, and then it also depends on the country. If it's a topic that works so close, so well, or is so relevant in one territory, then the festival might be more interested in considering it. Even if it might not be, I don't know, the kind of filmmaking they usually go for. But also it's not, as I said, it's like it's tendencies. Everything is a tendency and it's not a strict thing. So I always still mention films when I talk to programmers and try to figure out a bit if they're like, if they seem interested, and if it's something that mightn't be like on the nose for me to go there, but might still work.
And it changes.
And it also changes on the festival directors. Like we had so many changes in the last couple of years with ITFA having, Berlin having new direction, Cannes having new direction, and they all come with their new stamps. So it's also for us to try to see, how does the programming change? How does the industry react to those changes? So it's a very complex field where there's usually also not a super clear answer. Like we usually discuss, okay, this could work there. Oh, they had a film that a couple of years back that might work, so I think this could be interesting. It's also sometimes personal interest of different programmers.
Yeah, the program. We are people after all.
Yes, we are.
We have another question. How is your fee structured? Is it tailored in each film, or is it constant formula?
It's negotiable. Of course, we usually make a proposal, make an offer. We have the kind of standard rates that we would offer you, but it is negotiable. And it also depends on which territories are free. It also got a bit more complex, where having sometimes different rates even for different territories, or if you make a worldwide deal with one player that buys the whole world, there is usually for example, a smaller share possible than when working with national distributors. So it is negotiable. I also cannot tell you one rate, but it's not fixed. It's something you can talk to sales about.
I don't think I don't see any other question you didn't answer. You are welcome to write.
There's one here.
Okay.
Are chances of getting accepted to a festival different when you do the application by yourself? Yes and no. I know that, I mean, festival programmers, they really look at each application. And they watch it, and a lot of the films get in just by blind application. But if I talk to people personally for maybe a longer time and they follow it, they know the project already. And of course, sometimes we can, I don't want to sound cocky, but we also work as kind of a quality stamp for films. Like they know
you have your reputation.
We have your reputation, and they know if I send in a film that there is certain kind of quality they can expect. But there is also, on the other hand, there are programmers that love to discover films themselves. They love to be in touch with filmmakers themselves. They work with us too, but they really like to also be contacted by you directly, and they want to be the ones discovering you. So it can also help. Things what I usually do, I do fill out submission forms, but I always have a discussion too, and I always talk to people. So it helps if you can tell additional information on what works with the film, how it worked in other countries, give some more feedback around the film than just filling out the form.
Yeah, it's an added value.
Yeah, and also I don't, you have festivals where they don't have open submissions. You have quite a lot of festivals that say, we look for you. They hunted other festivals. They don't have the resources to have a screening team screening through every film. So sometimes they don't take a submission, but if I contact them and if I email them, they will meet with me and look at my lineup. So sometimes you actually get to talk to festivals that it's hard to just blindly submit to.
It's good to know. Do you see anything new? Because
let's see, that was from the last one. I just wanted to add maybe on the question before with the fee structure, because I didn't see how it's structured. So we do offer different rates for different rights. For example, we take a higher share for festival income because it's a much more like smaller work. Of course, one festival does not pay the same as one broadcaster. So we do take a bigger share because it is much more coordination for smaller amounts. And then it depends on, like for VOD, we take a certain share, for broadcast deals, we take a certain share, and for distribution. So there are different rates.
Okay.
If we have a film, do we send it to you? Yes. So just look us up online. It's outlookfilms.com. You can contact us via email, either send it to me if you have my email address, or to any one of us who will forward it within the team to our head of acquisitions, and happy to receive your film.
Now, when you're at home, you would have something to watch.
Exactly. That's the perk of being a sales agent. You get to watch a lot of films all the time.
You're never bored.
No, you're never bored. You never have to think, oh, I don't know what I should watch.
Can you say something about the future
of
festivals after COVID?
Of course, it's a bit hard because I'm not. I would love to look in this little like glass bowl and like know what's happening. What I think is that a lot of festivals spend money in building their web presence and building their screening sites and having it online. So I think the hybrid version of festivals, it will stay with us. I don't think we'll go back to a time where all festivals are only physical. I don't know how the industry will react to it. Like right now, we're very open to it. And also broadcasters are open, and with distributors, we need to discuss more. It will be more, more discussion in the future. And also what I'm curious about myself is how it will work with different smaller festivals in the same country that usually don't need the national premiere, But if a festival, for example, you have a German festival, German premiere, and then they will have the hybrid version, the hybrid part, the online part, be able to watch in all of Germany. Usually after one German festival, they can have smaller festivals in other cities. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they still will consider films that already had an online screening that also reached their audience. So this is something that could potentially change, that it might be harder to have multiple festivals in one country. But also what we have experienced is that, I mean, the reputation of film festivals in their own territory is huge. It's their own, it's like the people know the programming, they love the programming, they trust the selection. And if you open it up for the whole country to watch it online, you reach a wider audience. And if it's a country where it's hard to have theatrical, and if the broadcast is open to it, it can actually help you with reaching the audience, getting actually more revenue than you would. So there are also like positives.
Sides of this.
Yeah. So yeah, but I don't know how it will
develop.
How it will be developed. I do hope in a way, and I think what we also have to think about is now that we see what is possible online, also with an industry side, like with talks like this, for example, that we have to rethink our traveling. I don't think everything will be online and people will travel again to markets, because you cannot, as I said before, you cannot replace the human contact, but some things you can do online, and there is maybe no need to have a flight from one country to another to have a talk when you can actually talk. So I hope it will change, that we at least fly a little bit less and rethink where it makes sense to fly, all from just environmental standpoint. Can you please send your email? Yes, I can send you all my email address. Here you go.
Okay, so I think this is the time for thanking you. Thank you very much for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. It was very interesting.
And time went by fast, actually.
Yeah, it did. So I just would like to remind you of the next session, which will be on the 26th, about the trailer of, I don't remember the name in English, it's תזמורת ממוחזרת, and as Pina said before, they had an amazing story with their trailer. And if you want to be prepared, you can watch the film itself. It's in a docu-stream by DocAviv online until the end of October. Okay. So we will answer the rest of the question about your mail, and we will assist to make this contact. So thank you very much again. And now you can walk home safely.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
I hope your lockdown is over soon.
Me too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.